Today I wanted to teach you guys how to play a really simple but also a really fun Bach piece, and that is Bach's very famous Minuet in G. Now I actually have two different versions of the sheet music here. This one here I think dates from like the 1850s to the 1860s, and this one here is a little bit later. I think it might be from the 1890s, and actually they're from the same publishing company, which is kind of interesting. But I'm actually going to be using the later version because it's the one I learned the piece on, and then I was also a bit more familiar with the fingering. The first one had some fingering not that was changed, but that was omitted, and then I figured that it left a little bit more ambiguity as far as what finger to use, and whereas this one here had more fingering markings in it, and it was a little bit easier to know exactly what to do. This is the sheet music. You probably can't see it too well from there, but I will do a close-up of it, and I will guide you through first the sheet music, and then I will also show you exactly how to play it on the keyboard, note for note, what fingers to use according to this edition, and just how to play it. Now again, there's going to be some discrepancies if you're using a more modern version, like maybe Schirmer's edition or whatever version you have. There's probably going to be fingering additions. They might say that, you know, fingering changes. They might say that like it's supposed to be played at a different tempo or something. But if if you're watching this video and you're learning how to play the piece and your sheet music has a different fingering than this, try them both and see what works best for you. That's really all I can say about that. So let's get into looking at the sheet music close-up of the Minuet in G, and then from there I will guide you through the sheet music, and then I will show you how to play it. Now if you want to hear what this piece sounds like played at its full tempo, which I'm not going to do in this video, there's going to be two links in the description. One of them is going to take you to the video where I play the piece at its full tempo, and the other one is going to take you to a tutorial on how to play the G major scale. And if you don't already know how to play the G major scale, learning it is going to be really, really helpful with this piece because, as the title might suggest, about 90% of the piece is in G. Those four measures where it moves to the key of D, but that's really similar to the key of G. All it has is an additional C sharp. So basically, if you know how to play the scale of G, it's going to be a really big help with playing this piece. So let's get started with teaching you how to play it. So this is a video teaching how to play Bach's famous Minuet in G. Now if you want to hear a performance of this piece, you can go in the description of this video and listen to a video of me playing the piece, which can help you decide whether or not you actually want to learn this piece. And one thing that can really help you when you decide to learn this piece is you can go in the description and watch a video of me teaching how to play the G major scale if you don't already know how to play it. Playing that scale and practicing it a bit before you work on this piece will really help you because, as you can see, there's lots of little tiny scale runs in the piece, and almost all of these are in the key of G major, especially the ones you're seeing here a couple lines down. We get into D major a tiny bit, but all of the ones you're seeing here are in G major, which is very convenient. So if you want to practice on the G major scale, that will really help you. So now let's take a look at the piece, and the first thing we'd want to do when we're taking a look at the piece is take a look at the key signature as well as the time signature. Now the key signature we're in, as you could probably tell by the title of the piece, is G major, and that means that we have one F sharp. So both in the right hand and the left hand, any F that we see is automatically going to be made into an F sharp, which means instead of playing the key of F, we would play the black note that is directly to the right of F, which is the note of F sharp. So for example, let me find an F sharp right here. That was normally an F, but instead we would be playing an F sharp instead. Now the time signature here, as you can see, is 3/4, and what that means is the 3 stands for how many beats are in each measure, and in this case that means there are 3, and the 4 means that a quarter note is going to get the beat, which means that for every beat, for every tick of the metronome, the quarter note is going to be on that beat. So if the time is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, on every number you would play a quarter note. And as you can see here, we have 3 quarter notes. We don't have more than that, we don't have less than that, and that's because each of these is symbolizing a beat. Another thing I wanted to discuss is the tempo here of the piece. It says allegretto, and then it also says that the metronome speed should be played as one dotted half note equals 66. Now, this version of the sheet music that I'm using right here is actually like 150 years old, and because the metronome hadn't been invented by Bach's time, there's going to be some discrepancies as to how fast the piece should be interpreted. Some might say this is too fast. I doubt anyone would say it's too slow, but some would probably say that it's too fast, and some versions of the internet are played much slower than the speed of 66. So when you're learning this piece, you don't have to worry about playing it at first at 66. You really never should do that when you're learning a piece. You never should immediately start off the piece by trying to play it at its full tempo. You should always play it very slowly at a very comfortable speed and get a feel for the piece before you start moving it and making it faster and faster. So if we take a look at the actual sheet music here, we can see that everything here is really quite simple. We start off here with the G major chord in the left hand, which is GBD, played with our pinky at the bottom here, and then basically everything here is just played with our left hand, just our left hand just stays in that position, and we just play A and B and C and all those notes just right as our fingers happen to fall on them. And the same thing happens down here with the left hand on the second line. We can see that, in fact, the sheet music is telling us to play 1 on D, 3 on B, and 5 on G, just like we played the root position G major chord at the very beginning of the piece. The right hander is also quite simple. It starts off here with 5 on D and then jumps down here to G, and then it kind of runs up the G major scale back up to D, and then jumps right back down to G again. I'll play all this very, very slowly for you in just a little minute here, and I'll further explain it, and I'll show you all the fingering that would go on each and every note. I'm just kind of taking a little brief look at the sheet music here, just to kind of show you what it looks like. And if you want, if you don't have a version of this sheet music, you can screenshot this and just put the picture up on your music desk and use it, or you can probably find a version of this for free on the internet, or if you happen to have a modern version of it in a book, it should be exactly the same, and so you would be able to play it from that also. So basically, the right hand just kind of keeps following that pattern as well. We've got various little runs from the G major scale, which is why I said that knowing the G major scale before going into learning this piece would be a really great help, because it will really help you to play all of these very nice, consistently, and smoothly as well. Now, one thing that I wanted to mention here is this. This is a grace note, and basically what this means, and again, I will demonstrate all of this for you on the piano in just a minute here, but basically what that means is this note here is a B, and then it goes to an A, and basically you play that B very quickly right before you play the A, and I'll show you how that works in a bit, and it's really quite simple, but it might take a little bit of practice as well, because you'd want to play the A and the D down here in time, but this B would come right before the A very quickly, and that is what a grace note is. Basically, everything else here in the sheet music is really, really simple, and when we come down to here, we would have a repeat, which would mean we would go back to the beginning, play all of this over again, and then once we get to this a second time, we would then go on to the second section. Now, before we move on to show you the last two lines of the piece, I wanted to just mention the fact that the dynamics, as well as the slurs and all that stuff in this music, are certainly the dynamics, probably the slurs as well, are most likely they're editor's editions. So basically, Bach wouldn't have written in the dynamics here because at his time, he would have written this piece for a clavichord, and you could also play the piece on a harpsichord during the time, but the clavichord is most likely what he wrote this piece for, and the clavichord is an early keyboard instrument that is incapable of playing any dynamics, and in fact, the instrument itself is actually whisper quiet. So the dynamics here of piano, which means soft throughout all of this, and then mezzo forte, or medium loud here, is just kind of like an optional thing in a way, and probably many scholars would disagree about even adding dynamics. And another thing I wanted to add also is that there's no pedal throughout the piece, because a clavichord or a harpsichord did not have a pedal. So Bach didn't write any pedal, and when you're playing this on the piano, you should not add any pedal to it. So on the other side of the repeat, as you can see, the music here continues, and also the dynamic changes here. As you can see, now it says mezzo forte, which means medium loud. At the beginning of the piece, it said piano, which means soft. So you'd want to slightly increase the dynamics here if you were going to play the dynamics. And so then the music would continue, but then right down here, something interesting happens. The piece actually moves into the key of D for 4 measures, which means we now have an accidental, which means this C has now been turned into a C sharp that isn't actually in the original key signature. So basically, we have a C sharp here for these 4 measures, and that is basically what's happening. So we would be playing a C sharp here instead of a C natural like you would in the G major scale. However, right here, we go back into the key of G. As you can see, now the C has a natural sign in front of it, which means you would simply play the normal white note of C, as opposed to C sharp, which is the black key directly to the right of C. Again, the same rule with sharps applies here with C, as it does with all notes on the piano. After this, the music returns to piano, which again means soft, and then the piece continues all the way down to here, and then we hit another repeat sign, which means we'd go back to here to the repeat facing to the right, and then we would just play through the end of the piece, and then we'd hit the end of the song, and we'd finish it. So that was just a quick overview of the sheet music. So now let me show you how it would sound. I'm going to play it through really, really slowly on the piano, show you all of the fingering for every single note, and how it is supposed to be played on the piano. So So here we are at the piano keyboard, so let me show you how we're going to start off the piece. Now basically in our left hand we're going to be playing a G major chord, and what that means is we're going to be playing, starting off with our pinky, we're going to be playing a G, we're going to be playing a B, and we're going to be playing a D, just like that all together. So that's the first note of the left hand. It's technically 3 notes, but it's the first beat of the left hand that we're going to be playing in this piece. Now at the same time, our right hand, also with our pinky, is going to be playing a D up here. So that is the first thing you're going to be playing in the piece is that. Now we're going to be holding down that G chord while we play this with our right hand. Now again, you're going to want to make sure that you're playing all of this in time, especially once you kind of get a feel for the piece and once you kind of learn how to play it better, you're going to want to make sure you're playing it all in time. At the moment, I'm not going to be worrying about the time signature, but if you want to see how the piece sounds when it's all in time, you can go watch that performance video, which is going to be hopefully a good help when you're learning how to play the piece so that you know how it's supposed to sound. At the moment though, when I'm just taking you on a really slow tour of the piece, I'm not going to worry about playing the time signature particularly correctly, except for like maybe if I play the whole line or something for you, then I will play it in the correct timing. So basically, as I said, the first 3 notes here we're going to be playing is this, like that. So our thumb comes down here in the right hand to play G and A, and then our second finger is the one that goes on A, and the left hand is going to be held for all of that. Now, the next note we play with our right hand, our middle finger is going to land on B, and at the same time, our left hand is going to be playing an A with our 4th finger, like that. Now, that particular note doesn't sound great when you just play it by itself, but it's simply a passing tone, and when you play it in the music at a more normal speed, and you don't just sit there and hold those notes, it sounds totally fine. So here's what that measure sounds like up till now. Now the next note we're going to want to play is C in the right hand with our 4th finger, and then the A that we were holding here on the B that sounded so strange is also going to be held under this C as well. Just like that. And as you can see, that dissonant sound, which is this, dissonant means kind of, not sounding good, that resolves into this, which is a much nicer sound. So the first measure of the piece sounds like this. So that's what the first measure of your piece should sound like. So now let's move on to the next part. Now, first of all, I'm going to go back to the first measure for just a minute. If you look on your sheet music, different versions might be slightly different. I'm not really sure about modern versions, but my version, if you're looking at it on the screen, if you took a screenshot of it or something like that, you will notice that the first measure has like this curved arc over the top notes, and that basically means to play the notes legato. It's a slur, and it means to play them all nicely connected like I just did there. I'll play it again for you. It means to play the notes smoothly and with a connected feel. But the next measure, each note has a little dot over it, and what that means is it means staccato, and that means to play the notes kind of broken and separated, and the second measure goes like this. Like that, and so you play the notes briefly and very quickly. You don't necessarily play them louder, but you just play them quicker. The time signature stays the same, but the length of time that the note is being held down is shorter. Now, as you can see here, the next measure is actually very simple. With our middle finger, we hold down B in the left hand, and then at the same time, we play D in the right hand with our pinky, and then we play G twice on the second and third beats with our thumb, which I played already, but I just wanted to explain to you in case you were a little bit confused how it got there. So the first 2 measures of the piece sound like this. So that's how that is going to work. So now let's move on to the next measure. The measure we just got done working with sounded like this. So the next measure we're going to do sounds like this. Now, as you can see there, the right hand of this next measure is legato once again, and we start off by playing E with our middle finger up here. At the same time, we play C with our second finger right down here. Then we go on to play C with our thumb in the right hand, and then we go right up the G major scale, again legato, until we come to the next measure, which is staccato again, and we play G with our pinky. At the same time, we play B with our middle finger in the left hand, like this. And then, like the second measure, we jump down to G again and play it twice, staccato. So the fourth measure sounds like this. So now let me play the first 4 measures of the piece for you. So that's what it should sound like so far. Hopefully you guys are following along, and I'm making it easy enough to follow along. So now let me move on to the next measure. From this measure, as you can see, my fourth finger just kind of landed right there on C, so now we would want to play that C with our fourth finger. And that's what that next measure sounds like. So basically what happens is we play C with our fourth finger, and then A with our middle finger in the left hand. And then from C, we would want to go up to D, and then come down the G major scale with 5, 4, 3, 2. Then the next measure, we would want to play B with our middle finger at the same time that we play G with our fourth finger. Just like that. And then we'd go up to C, and then come down the G major scale. So now the first whole line of the piece sounds like this. Now, I actually told you a minute ago that you were supposed to play the A in your left hand in the second to last measure of the first line with your middle finger, and then play G with your fourth finger, but I took my hand off the key, and then I put it back on the wrong finger. You're actually supposed to play the A with your fourth finger, and then play the G with your fifth finger, as you can see there, because then the next measure, the first measure of the second line, goes like this, where we play that same G triad right here, except we play it broken from the top down, where we play D, B, and then G with 1, 3, and 5, just like we started off the piece with. So here's what the second measure, the first measure of the second line sounds like. So basically we play F sharp, and remember we have to play F sharp because we're in the key of G major. So we play F sharp at the same time we play that D in the left hand with our thumb. Then we play G and B together. Then we go to A in the right hand, and then we go to B and G together like that with our middle finger in the right hand and our pinky in the left hand. Then we play G with our thumb in the right hand, and then we're ready to move on to the next measure. But the first measure there of the second line sounds like this. Just like that, very pretty. It's all in the key of G. So now we're at the measure with that grace note. So now it's the time to explain to you what a grace note is. As I said earlier when we were looking at the sheet music, it's basically a quick note that you play before the main note. So the main note here is A, and the quick note we play beforehand is B. So basically the grace note works like this. That's exactly how it works. So we play this, because there's a D in our left hand, which we play with our thumb, and then the grace note, you just simply add onto that A. And in fact, if you look at your sheet music, you can even see that the small little note that's right to the left of the A is actually saying it's on the line that a B normally is. So it's actually telling you what note to play the grace note as. Now our left hand will jump an octave below this D to play this D down here with our pinky, and then from there we jump back up to C to walk down the G major scale. So the measure with the grace note, the second measure in the second line, sounds like this. Just like that. It's really simple, actually. So now let's move on to the next measure. We're going to want to play B with our second finger in the left hand at the same time we play D in our right hand. And this measure will sound somewhat familiar because the melody is the same as the first measure in the piece. The left hand, though, is ever so slightly different. As you can see, instead of playing a G major chord, we instead play simply a B, and then we play A on the third beat of the measure, like this. And then we jump down to G in our right hand with our thumb and walk up the G major scale. Like that. That's how that measure goes. And now we're ready to move on to the next measure, which goes like this. Now this measure is actually, I think, probably going to be one of the trickier measures in the piece. The notes are actually quite simple, but what's going to make this tricky is the left hand is supposed to be normal quarter notes, while the right hand is actually staccato, which I think might take a bit of coordination, and in fact, sometimes I would find myself playing both hands staccato. But it's supposed to be, the left hand is not staccato because it doesn't have any dots over the note, but the right hand is supposed to be staccato. As you can see, the notes there that we're playing are quite simple. We play D with our pinky, and then we jump down to G. And then in the left hand, we play G with our fourth finger. We go up to B with our second, and then come back down to G. We have to remember that the right hand is staccato, whereas the left hand is not. But once you get that measure, it's time to move on to the next one. So we jump up from G with our thumb to E with our middle finger, and then at the same time we play middle C with our thumb. Then we walk up the G major scale after jumping down to C, so it goes like this. Just like that, fingers just walk right up the scale. Don't forget to play F sharp, of course. And then after that, we want to play B with our second finger. At the same time, we play G. And the right hand in this measure is staccato, as you can tell by the dots over the notes. And then our right hand jumps down to G, and the left hand plays a C at the same time. And then the left hand walks right down the G major scale there as well. So now let's play the second line of the piece through really slowly. That is how the second line of the piece goes, and just for fun, I figured I would start at the beginning of the piece, play the first two lines, and then we can move on to the third line. Hopefully you guys can follow along, and hopefully this helps you playing the piece through slowly. I remember years ago when I used to learn a bit more complicated Bach pieces, I'd look up videos online, and I would really wish that people would play them through slowly so I could kind of understand how it was supposed to be played slowly, like the tempo I was practicing it at the time. So hopefully playing it through slowly helps some of you guys out there. So that was the first two lines, so now let's move on to the third line of the piece. So the last measure of the last line goes like this. And from here, we want to play A in our left hand with our thumb, and then at the same time play C in our right hand with our fourth finger. Like so. Then we head up to D and then come back down in our right hand. On this B, we play F sharp in our left hand with our middle finger. Like that. Again, that's another kind of odd sounding note. But then it quickly resolves to A, and then from here we want to play G in our left hand with our second finger as we play B with our middle finger in our right hand. Then we go down the G major scale again after going up to C. Then we go to A in our right hand at the same time that we play B in our left hand. Again, another odd sounding note that quickly resolves. So this first two measures of the third line sound like this. Just like that. And then we want to go to the third measure. So what we do is we cross our second finger over our thumb to get here to this C, which we play at the same time as A in our right hand with our second finger as well. Then we go up to B and D in our hands, like that. Then we head down, and then we play the D an octave lower in our left hand at the same time we play G in our right hand. And then we do one of the last measures in the third line, which is this. Probably the simplest measure in the whole piece, just G's, that's all it is. Now that is the last measure before the repeat of the piece, so if you want to do the repeats, from here you would go back to the beginning of the piece and play it again, so that would kind of be like this. Which I'm not going to play the whole thing through again, but that's what you do. If you don't want to do the repeat, from here you would move on to the next line in the third line of the piece. So to play this next measure, we would play G with our thumb in the left hand, and then at the same time we would play D. Actually, we'd play this B way up here with our pinky, like this. And then we would jump down to G, as you saw, and then walk up to B, come back with our middle finger, and then up in the back, just like that, like I showed you. I'll play it again for you, because I didn't do a great job of explaining what to do. It's actually quite simple. From here, our fourth finger is already on A, so we play A with our fourth finger as we do F sharp in our left hand with our second finger. Then we jump down to D with our thumb. And that is the third line of the piece. So what I'm going to do is go back to the beginning of the third line, play that all the way through, and then we'll move on to the fourth line of the piece. Just like that. Another rather challenging part of the piece for some is going to be that jump where we jump from this G here all the way up to this B way up here. So what I'd say is just to simply, when you're practicing on the piece, just kind of take your time, and if you want to, one thing you can do that one of my piano teachers taught me that's actually really valuable is if you're finding that jump to the B very difficult and you find it hard to get there in time, one thing you can do is when you play it slow, you can do it fine, but when you go to play it faster, you find it harder to do, is what you can do is you can turn off the metronome and then play it at the normal speed that you're practicing at, which let's just say is like this. So what you'd want to do is you'd want to move your hand quickly, but then make sure that you're on that B and your finger is on that note before you actually play it. So you'd make a quick movement like you're playing it at the normal speed, and then take the time, make sure your fingers are on the right note, and then resume playing at the right speed. So you want to switch off the metronome for that and practice doing that for a while. I found that to be a really great help with pieces that had really tricky jumps in them, and that's one thing one of my piano teachers taught me that I thought was a really great help, so maybe that'll help some of you guys out there as well from jumping from here up to this B. So let's move on to the fourth line here of the piece, which we're going to start off with our fourth finger in our right hand as we play E with our middle finger in our left hand. From here, we go to E with our second finger in our right hand, and then G with our thumb in our left hand. So like this, starting from the beginning of the measure. Then we go to F sharp. Then we go to G at the same time we play E again in the left hand. Then we jump down to our thumb on D. So the first measure sounds like this of the fourth line. From here, we want to cross our middle finger over our thumb to get to C sharp at the same time that we play an A in our left hand. Just like that. And as you can see, with the interval that we were playing here at the end of the last measure was really weird, but then it quickly resolves right to there, which is a really nice sound. So from here, we play this, which as you can see is quite simple. We play C sharp with our middle finger, then we go down to B with our second finger, back up to C sharp, then we play the A an octave lower, below this A, just like that. One thing I find is kind of cool about this piece is that even though octaves are involved, you don't have to play them at the same time. So if your hands are too small to reach an octave, you don't have to worry about playing them exactly when the other note ends. You could just kind of take a little bit of a break and then jump down to the other A like that. Which I like because you don't have to play the octaves at the same time, because I know not everyone can reach octaves. So the second measure of the second to last line of the piece goes like this, the one we just got done playing. So from here, we want to play this high A again with our thumb at the same time we play this A that our thumb is already on in our right hand, like this. From here, we walk up the D major scale, which is the same as the G major scale, except it has a C sharp in there. So instead of playing this, we'd want to play this. As you can see, our fingers just walked up there. It was really quite simple. From the beginning of the measure, it goes like this. When we get to C sharp, we tuck our thumb under to get to D. Then we go up with our fingers like that. The A is held for that entirety of the measure. And then from here, the next measure, we play G on our fourth finger at the same time that we play B with our left hand, just like that. Then we go down to F sharp with our third finger in our right hand at the same time that we play D. And then we want to play E with our right hand as we play C sharp in the left hand. And this measure is also staccato. I wasn't playing it staccato there because I was explaining the notes and letting the sound hang so you get an idea of what it's supposed to sound like. But with staccato, this measure sounds like this. And in this case, both hands are supposed to be staccato, as you can tell by the dots above the notes in both the bass clef and the treble clef. The next measure sounds like this, where we play D with our thumb, and then we play F sharp with our middle finger here. Also staccato, but I'm not going to play it staccato when I'm demonstrating it for you. Then we play F sharp with our left hand as we play A with our thumb. Then we play A in our left hand with our second finger as we play C sharp with our right hand. Just like that. So with staccato, that would sound like this. These two staccato measures are going to sound like this together. I'm going to start at the previous measure. Just like that, and they're supposed to be staccato and short just like that. So at the end of this measure, we then play D in our left hand and D in our right hand with our fourth finger. Just like that. Our fingers were kind of already there, so it's pretty obvious what fingers to play, but the sheet music in this case, in my version, actually still tells you what to play, which is kind of pretty nice. So from here, we, as you can tell, my pinky already wants to, we jump down here to D after playing this. Just like that. Then we go back up to C. So this next measure sounds like this. Then with our pinky, we swap from playing D with our fourth finger to playing D with our pinky, just like that, at the same time that we play B in our left hand. So like that. And so those two measures together, the measure I just got done teaching, and then this, the next measure, the very first note of it, goes like this. I play it with my second finger, but you're supposed to play that B there with your third finger. And one thing you can do is while you're playing the previous measure, which is where you hold this D throughout the whole measure, you can actually change to the pinky before you even get to the next measure, so your pinky's already there, and all you have to do is lift your hand up and play it. So the next measure of the piece, we're going to play with D in our right hand at the same time that we play D in our left hand with our thumb. Then we jump down to D in our left hand, and then we go back up to C with our right hand. So our left hand just does this, while we hold D in the right hand with our pinky, like this. From here, we're going to want to change the D in our right hand with our fourth finger to D with our pinky, like that, at the same time that we play B in our left hand with our middle finger. Just like that. The next note we're going to want to play is the G with our thumb right here, along with D with our thumb in the left hand. So like this, at the beginning of the measure, to this. Then we play F sharp with our second finger in the right hand. Then we go back to G. At the same time we play B, like that. So this measure goes like this. Now one little tip I wanted to show you is that in the previous measure where we hold D for the whole measure as our left hand does this, instead of waiting for the next measure to switch to pinky, like that, which you can do, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, what I often find myself doing is while I'm holding this D, I kind of subtly change to my pinky. Did you see that? I just kind of slide my fourth finger up, bring the pinky in and replace it with the pinky while the note is being held down and sustained. And then I can just play pinky right there with my pinky. I can just play it. It's already there. So that's just one thing you can do. I don't know if that would really help anybody. It might make it more difficult, but I often find myself doing that, so I just wanted to share something that I do. Maybe it'd make it easier for some of you, but I'm not really sure. Just something I do that I thought I'd show you. So this measure sounds like that. We already talked about that. The next measure is we play E with our right hand as we play C with our second finger in our left hand. Then we jump up to E in the left hand and G in the right hand, like this. Back to C, and then G in the right hand. And then we play B with our middle finger as we play D in our right hand with our pinky. That's what that measure sounds like. As you can see, it's really simple. It just walks right down the scale with our fingers, all in the order that they're already in. In the left hand, we jump back up to D for the next measure, and then we play A in our right hand with our second finger, which, as you can see, is already there on that A. We go down to G, we cross our second finger over to F sharp. Then we do something kind of interesting. Instead of doing this, where we play our thumb again and then our second finger, we actually don't do that. We do this instead, where we do A with our second finger, G with our thumb, then we cross our finger over to F sharp, which I showed you. Then we play our middle finger on G, and then we play fourth finger on A. So that's just something kind of interesting. You could do it the other way, but the sheet music says to play it like this because if you're already on your middle finger here, it's easier to reach this D, which is the next note you play if you wanted to play it this way. You'd have a bigger stretch because you're landing on A, and then you'd have to jump to D, whereas if you play with your the rather unusual finger that they have here, where you play middle finger here, you then end up with your fourth finger here, which makes it a lot easier to reach this D. So technically either way would work, but I like the way the music has it because, as I said, it's easier to reach that D. So the measure we just talked about is this one. The next measure, as I said, we jump down to D in the right hand as well as the left hand, which we do so with our pinky. Then from here, we simply just walk up the G major scale with our second finger, and then we play with our middle finger here. Then we tuck our thumb under for G. Then we play F sharp in our left hand along with A in the right hand. Then we play B with our middle finger, and then from here we would play E with our fourth finger, which is already sitting there in the left hand, with C in our right hand, which is a dissonant sound, but then we resolve to this, like so. And then we'd want to play F sharp, just like so, in the left hand with our second finger, as we play E, A with our second finger in our right hand, so 2 second fingers playing at the same time. Then from here, we would want to play G with our thumb in the left hand, at the same time that we play B with our middle finger. So our fingers were here, so we just go to here. Then we jump up to D. Then we want to jump down to B in our left hand as we play G in our right hand. Then we go to D in our left hand with our fourth finger because it's already there, and then we also want to play F sharp, which you probably saw my finger kind of leaning towards. And then from here, we would jump down to G major like this. So that's going to be a chord we just play G, B, and D all at the same time. And then in the left hand, we just do this. Now it's staccato, and some of the measures here that I was showing you, I wasn't playing them staccato, but you would want to obey the sheet music where it says to play staccato and where it says to play legato, which means play smoothly and connectedly. So now what I thought I would do is I'm going to play the piece all the way through. I'm not going to do the repeats because that would make it really long, but I'm just going to play the piece all the way through at a really nice slow speed, like I have been already, just so you can play along with it and get an idea of what it sounds like at perhaps a speed that some of you might be practicing it at home. So hopefully you enjoy that and you find it helpful. Like I said, that's something I wish people would do more often. Years ago when I was learning more complicated Bach pieces, like I said, I would go online, try to find videos of people playing it slowly, but that just didn't exist. So now I'm going to be providing that for people. So hopefully you guys find it helpful. So starting from the beginning of the piece and going all the way to the end again with no repeats. Couple things I wanted to mention. At one point in there, I accidentally played one of the staccato notes legato. I didn't mean to do that. It was supposed to be staccato there. And at the end of the piece, the last note is written in the left hand as being staccato, but I find that at the end of a performance when you're playing it at a quicker speed, it just sounds really abrupt to play the very last note as the staccato. So I usually hold that note, and I've seen other people online do that as well. So I don't think that's an inappropriate thing to do in that one case, to hold the very last note as a legato, as a fermata, which basically means a fermata means to hold a note longer than its value, and you kind of do that at the end of the piece. If you didn't, it would just be like this, which I think is a bit abrupt, so I usually do this at the end of the piece, which I don't think is that bad to do. So hopefully you found this video helpful with learning the Minuet in G. Now again, like I said at the beginning of the video, practicing the G major scale, which is this, is going to be really, really helpful with playing this piece and just being really good at playing some of those quicker runs like in the beginning of the piece. Right there, as you can see, that's taken right from the G major scale. So, playing the G major scale and knowing how it goes is going to be a big help when you're playing this piece. So hopefully you found this video to be helpful and you enjoyed watching it and you just found it to be helpful in your endeavors in learning the Minuet in G. Like I said, it's a really fun piece. If you haven't heard it performed at full speed, it's actually a really fun piece to both listen to and play, even though it is very, very simple. And if you liked this video, let me know down in the comment section below that you did like it and you want me to make more of these, if you do want me to make more of these, because some of the pieces in this book are really cool. The next piece, number 2 in the book, is actually a variation of the Minuet in G, except it's in G minor instead of in G major, and it sounds really dark and kind of cool. So I want to do that one next. I think that one's going to be kind of fun. And it's a piece that I really haven't heard much before, and I think it sounds kind of fun. So I wanted to do that one next, but let me know what you guys think of this video series and if you found it to be helpful. And if you did, make sure to give this video a like. And if you want to subscribe, you can do that. And if you want to, you can hit the notification bell as well, because then you can be notified of all of my future uploads, whether they're reviews of pianos and other cool keyboard instruments, or if they're more tutorials on how to play cool classical music. So if you want to do that, you can. And if you do that, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.